the streets of Benghazi are once again the focal point for crowds of angry Libyans. Only this time they're protesting against the country's new government. For 2 days, tens of thousands of protesters have been demanding more transparency and honesty from the National Transitional Council. The demonstrators are infuriated by secrecy surrounding the country's decision-making and finances. The city of Benghazi was where the NATO-backed rebellion began and ultimately ended 40 years of Colonel Muamar Gaddafi's rule. Well, let's discuss this now further with Patrick Hayes. He's a reporter for the online magazine Spiked, joining us in London. Well, this former anti-Gaddafi stronghold is now, once again, as we can see, plagued by unrest. Do you think there is the potential for things to get really serious, or is it more likely to calm down when the elections are held as promised?
Well, I think things could get serious, certainly in the run-up to that period. And obviously, it is always a question in this situation when the elections are going to be and exactly whether or not the NTC are going to really be as good as their word in this situation. I think this is a very interesting development because the National Transitional Council was never actually really part of a democratically forged Libya anyway. They were never on the streets really fighting for with the Libyan people against Gaddafi. A lot of them, in fact, were in other countries at the time, waiting to almost be helicoptered in when it was safe enough to enter Tripoli. Well, what you had with the NTC from the start, and we've been kind of talking about this for several months now, was a transitional council which is made up of, well, to the extent that we know how it was made up, it was made up of Gaddafi cronies, people who were basically cherry-picked by the West as being suitable people to represent the Libyan people. Now we have a situation, and we've been saying on both RussiaToday and on Spiked, who I write for, that this was likely to happen, where the Libyan people are saying, hang on a minute, these people don't represent us, we don't even really know who they are. We have this Western-orientated National Transitional Council, which doesn't yet represent the Libyan people, and understandably the Libyan people are getting quite cross about this. They fought for democracy, a lot of them lost their lives for democracy, and now effectively, as the banners on the protests say, you know, we came this far to now be represented by former Gaddafi cronies. It's not on.
Patrick, it looks like the situation is very similar before Gaddafi was toppled, where the country is divided now, and it was divided, of course, between East and West, with the people in Benghazi now rallying against the people in Tripoli. Is this about the way oil revenues are to be distributed? Because that is certainly one area of concern, that an area, of course, causing bitterness amongst those protesters there in Benghazi. Or is there really more to it than that? And you have already mentioned the suspicions about the NTC, but anything perhaps to do with tribal or clan divisions as well?
Now, I mean, I think those divisions can sometimes be brought in to kind of muddy the waters a bit too much. And I'd rather not go down that route. I think ultimately, when people fight and struggle for a democracy, they do come together, as they were doing when Gaddafi was still in charge. And that process of negotiation, putting aside tribal differences, those kind of divisions that you can often make too much of, and actually fight to overthrow Gaddafi, and then think about how you would forge a new country, were put on ice by the Western intervention. Now, in terms of the oil money, I think you can understand why there are concerns with this, because there's a complete lack of transparency with the NTC at the moment. They won't even say how many members there are of the council. The websites that they have technically says there are 33 members, yet they said earlier on in November this year that 48 members voted for the new Prime Minister. I mean, there's a lot of confusion about what's going on in Libya at the moment, and the NTC really aren't showing any true leadership or representing the interests of the Libyan people.
You said a little earlier, sorry, just because we are running out of time, you said a little earlier that there are doubts as to whether the NTC will be good as their word. You're not actually questioning the fact that there will not be elections taking place. I mean, surely so much now depends on those elections, and many see that as the first step towards a new democratic future for Libya. Is that not what's going to happen?
No, the first step towards a democratic future for Libya was the revolution, which would have happened if it wasn't for the West getting involved. I mean, democracy can't just be handed from outside, as it really has been done with the NTC. That was basically the West imposing a government that it was satisfied with on the Libyan people. And basically what you've got a situation now is people are taking to the street with various concerns, be it oil money, be it transparency, be it democratic accountability. and saying, hang on a minute, we need to have these debates out. We need to have leaders that represent us. Now, yes, this may happen during the election process, but a democratic process, democracy is more than elections. Democracy is people going, debating, fighting conflicting visions of the future and winning arguments with people, winning arguments with people about how to run the country. Now, the NTC didn't win an argument with the Libyan people about why they should run the country. They basically just appeased people in the West instead. So yes, the elections are very important. I think they will be true to their word that they will take place. But really what we're seeing now is a democratic process in action in many ways. People taking to the streets and saying, well, hang on a minute, who are you? You know, we didn't overthrow Gaddafi in order to have a load of his ex-cronies who are basically just lackeys of the West taking his role.
Patrick, thanks very much indeed for your thoughts there on the developing situation there in Benghazi in Libya. Patrick Hayes, reporter for the online magazine Spiked in London.
Thank you.